What a lot of narcissistic and pathologically self-centered people do is they find our hidden pain points. They look for the things that we can't avoid and then make those their target, like food. We all eat, so food is the ultimate control tactic. They exert moral superiority in 1,000 ways in the way they bought it, how they cooked it, how you eat it, what utensils you can use, how fast or slow you eat it. I'm sure you remember the arguments, the cold shoulders, maybe even the name calling. But I want to ask you about something different today. Do you remember that feeling that you got right before dinner? You know, that low-grade pit in the stomach experience that you had, where you started to wonder, did I make it right? Will my family eat it? Or will my difficult partner eat this? Is it going to be one of those nights? And your stomach tightened just a little bit. I want you to think about the fact that maybe that wasn't an accident. Maybe that's your nervous system remembering the battleground that your mind tried to minimize. So this week we've been pulling back the curtain on one of the quietly devastating personal tools that controlling partner uses to dominate our life, and that is food. Because food is never just about food. It's about one of our basic human needs for survival and safety. And food is also the way in which we connect with each other. It's the way that we nurture and support each other. And we often have intimate moments around the dinner table. What the narcissist or other pathological people realize is that turning the dinner table into a stage for emotional welfare is a perfect way to be able to control the tone and control the environment. When we think of coercive control, we tend to look for the big obvious boundary breaches, like financial abuse or cutting you off from your relationships or maybe infidelity. But what a lot of narcissistic and pathologically self-centered people do is they find our hidden pain points. They look for the things that we can't avoid and then make those their target, like food. So think about it. You can sleep in a separate room. You can stop going to social events. You can even work around other parts of toxic relationships, but we can't stop eating. It happens 3 times a day, every single day. We have to be fed. By inserting themselves into the arena of food, they ensure that you're feeling constantly evaluated, monitored, and even forced to navigate their unpredictable whims. They're weaponizing mealtime rituals and maybe even enforcing rigid dietary demands in order to do 2 things. 1, to assert their absolute superiority, and 2, to force you into a state of chronic anxiety. Some of you have shared in the community what this has been like, and I want to share with you what you've shared with me about how pervasive this specific type of abuse can really be. One viewer wrote in and said, "The house I grew up in was always my mom's house because she paid the bills. I never felt truly at home, but more like a servant in this house." Notice the sense of entitlement that moved through this home where there was a system of absolute dominance. Another viewer described her daily reality with her partner by saying, anytime that he called, he was angry. He would stop buying food, take the car keys so I couldn't get groceries until he decided to come home for dinner. Notice that he decided to come home for dinner. And then she shared he used the dinner that he brought as if he was a savior. There's a cycle here. It's deprive, rescue, and then reframe the situation, which was controlling, as a sign of absolute devotion. This isn't about somebody who has a bad mood or a quirky disagreement. This is a calculation of manipulation around a survival need. They're creating an environment in which your nourishment is completely dependent on your compliance. And they use food as a way to remind you of who's really holding the power in this relationship. This is how it happened in my relationship. And it kind of happened around 2 things. One was he would discount the food that I preferred to eat and elevate everything he liked to eat. He would do it in a way where it almost made it feel like if I didn't go along, I was being difficult. He would say, isn't this the best taco you ever had? My mom would make it like this, and I just loved it. Isn't this amazing? There's no food like this food. And I'm thinking, well, if I don't say, yeah, I agree, then I'm just like kind of, injuring his experience and his past and his family tradition. but yet it really wasn't a respectful situation for me. It didn't really take into account my lived experience and what's important to me. Another way he did it is he had a favorite dish. It was a one skillet chicken dish that his mother made, and he would brag about how she knew just the way he liked it, and that she would make it for him whenever he visited without even him asking. And in fact, one time we did visit them, and sure enough, she made it, and he would look at that dish and point at it and give me that smug look, like, see? Look how special I am. Look how much she loves me. Look how favored I am. And yet, there was not a single time when I ever cooked a meal where I got that kind of accolades and compliments. I felt very much a second class. And it reminded me of how well she loved him, and that by doing this for him, and that I didn't love him in the same way because I didn't have that kind of tradition or specialness in his relationship. I later learned, when I heard more of the family history, that his father would leave the family on a limited budget while he was traveling for work, and they would end up running out of money for groceries, so that by the end of the period of time that they were on their own on this budget, they were literally eating watered down fish soup. And the father would then return with fresh money and go out and demand that his wife use that new money to buy the groceries so that he could have homemade flour tortillas that only he was allowed to eat. No one else was ever allowed to eat. And interestingly enough, I discovered at the end of this marriage that my ex's mistress sent him photos of her cooking food for him of the same flour tortillas from scratch. That he had so much bragged about his father's superiority and entitlement to this family meal, so that he had her show him the same kind of love and devotion by making the same meal that his mother had to make for his father. All of this is part of coercive control. It makes you feel inadequate. That's the point. It weaponizes something that you have tried to do lovingly as a way to nourish this person and to show how much they mean to you, and they turn it into something that's ugly and has been weaponized. Our food has a special place in our psychology. Freud saw it as part of the oral gratification, that it represents sustenance and connection that goes back to the infants being fed at the arms of mother or being nursed in the arms of mother. This can be a very disordered functioning. When there's toxicity around it, it can become forms of refusing to be nourished in a relationship, or that we insist the nourishment be a specific kind that is so rigid that it feels suffocating. Or it can say that you're never satisfying enough when they reject the food. What I'm saying is food is a symbol, and that they're using this symbol as a way to control you, to sort of say that you don't supply my needs in the way that I want. There's also ways in which we use food that has to do with body image and hunger and how much weight we have on our bodies. And abusers are very good at kind of like latching on, figuring out where our greatest vulnerability is, and then weaponizing those things so that we feel shame around how we feed ourselves, how we present ourselves, what our food intake says about ourselves in terms of weight. It can become a highly conflictual message that says you're not perfect enough unless you meet these needs in these ways. So you end up feeling like you're literally left starving for an emotional connection while you walk on eggshells trying to literally nourish this person in the relationship. Because food is so tied into our biology, the damage of this abuse doesn't just stay in our thoughts, it also affects how we metabolize it in our bodies. And a lot of us, we often will detach from ourselves, from our bodies. You may find yourself losing your appetite altogether. You may find yourself using food to comfort yourself out of feeling like there's no emotional safety, like that's the only place that consistently shows up for you. And it can end up having an effect where it can ripple through the generations, where there's this kind of nourishment inadequacy and struggles. One person wrote in with this kind of heartbreaking experience where they said, we all eat, so food is the ultimate control tactic. They exert moral superiority in 1,000 ways in the way they bought it, how they cooked it, how you eat it, what utensils you can use, how fast or slow you eat it. My partner brought this to such level that my daughter, who was slightly chubby, turned into somebody who was struggling with a severe eating disorder. Another viewer wrote in and talked about, I would get nervous eating around other people because of all the drama around the family dinner table. I saw at the hospital when I was seeing patients inpatient, there were some people who literally could not eat in the presence of other people because it had been so weaponized and dangerous that they didn't feel safe taking in nourishment in front of somebody for fear of more criticism and judgment. Another viewer wrote in and said, food was a thing that my mother used to abuse me. It's the reason that as an adult, I'm not a social eater. Exactly. That's exactly what I shared when I saw at the psychiatric hospital. She then learned, don't eat in front of people, because she'd been so injured that she then took that as something now that was no longer ever safe to do. And that's what's so tragic about narcissistic abuse. It convinces you that this is what you have to do in order for you to stay safe from dangerous people. So maybe you're realizing today that your relationship with food has been hijacked as well by a controlling partner. I want you to look at some common warning signs, and then I want to talk about some practical steps to help you reclaim your autonomy around this issue. Watch out for people who keep food scoreboards. This is a person who constantly monitors how much you're eating. They talk about whether or not you've had seconds. They criticize about how you chew, and they compare your habits to some idealized version of something outside of there. Maybe a previous relationship or somebody they see on social media or on media in general. Notice that this is actually an assertion of dominance. It's not an expression of care. They may say that they love you and that's why they're looking after you in this way, but that is not love and care. That's somebody exerting control. So that's one way. A second way this can show up is when they create disruption around the particularities. Maybe it is they destroy the family's budget, or they make a huge deal, and so there's no peace in the house if they don't have a specific brand or a specific indulgence or a way that meals happen in their house. Maybe they insist that no one speaks during a meal, or that nobody ever opens their mouth while they eat, or maybe they have to have a particular brand of dressing on the table. And notice how they end up treating you as though you're a servant rather than a partner. And the third thing for you to watch out that can be a warning sign is just how you feel in your body. Do you feel some kind of a threat response rise up within you? Maybe you're intensely anxious when you're starting to make meals, or you get nauseous, or maybe you have a lot of jaw pain before having to sit down across from this person. Notice that your body is identifying that something about this situation feels unsafe. That's your biological radar that something is off. So, say that you do see one of these signs that tell you something's going wrong. How do you start to heal from it? Well, first, reclaim your own nourishment ritual. Pick one meal a week, maybe even just a snack, and prepare it exactly the way you want. Eat it entirely on your terms, away from this person's gaze, and consciously practice experiencing it as enjoyment, as joy even, something that's free from judgment. Number 2, I'd like you to start to separate the injury from your identity. If you're struggling to eat around other people, stop telling yourself, I'm just weird, I'm an anxious eater, or I'm not a social eater, I just don't like to eat in front of people. Instead, reframe it from reality. You know what? I was trained by being around somebody that was really harmful to me, that eating in front of people has become dangerous. So now I'm trying to retrain myself to know that I can eat in front of people and that it's safe. State the truth. That's what actually you're doing. And the third way for you to find healing is break off the partnership with anybody who's a controller. When someone tries to weaponize food or to shame you for your appetite, refuse to agree with them in your mind. Recognize that critique was a reflection of their pathology, not a reflection of your self-worth. Healing your body from trauma, and especially around food issues, takes a lot of time. So if you've escaped a toxic situation and finally are able to sit around a peaceful dinner table, I want you to give yourself credit for that victory. That's real healing. especially on the days when it just feels like it's not. But maybe you're in the thick of it and you're trying to navigate the dread of the kitchen table every night. Please keep watching yourself. Realize that you're learning, validate what your body is telling you because you're not crazy and you're not alone in this. This is a common problem. And maybe if this issue resonated with you today, consider sharing this video with somebody who might be quietly suffering from the exact same dynamics. Maybe they need to hear from you in one of the comments below. So let me know, how did the abuser use food to hurt you? And how are you reclaiming your peace today? And thank you so much for sharing these stories with me. And if you have something that you'd like me to air online, please send it to clients, clients, at kerrymcavoyphd.com. And thank you so much for being a part of this channel and this community of teen care. I really hope that you are taking care of your body, and we'll see you back here on Monday with the next interview. It's 2 a.m. again, and you're replaying that whole conversation over, and you're wondering to yourself, was it really that bad, or maybe I'm just being dramatic? So you start to draft that I'm sorry text again, because the guilt that you're feeling or the confusion you're experiencing is just unbearable. And you know this loop because you've been there before, but I want you to know that you're not alone. I'm Dr. Kerry McAvoy. I'm a retired psychologist, and for 25 years, I've been helping people untangle exactly what toxic relationships do to your mind, how they create the confusion, the self-doubt, and that trauma bond that keeps pulling you back in. Here's the truth. Recovery isn't about getting more information. It's about having the right support in the exact moment you need it. That's why I've created Reclaim You. It's a private, always available coaching app built from my work and my content, organized into an extensive library that you can actually use when you're triggered. Inside it, you'll get 5-minute lessons when your brain can't handle a deep dive, check-ins that meet you exactly where you are, whether you're feeling strong, shattered, or numb, boundary scripts that help you say no without over-explaining, grounding tools that work fast when you're activated, and progress tracking so you can see proof you're healing even on days when it feels like you're not. There's no appointments, no waiting, no judgment, just practical support right when you need it. Reclaim You, real help in real time, right in your pocket. And it's a coaching support, not therapy or emergency care. Learn more at studio.com/Dr. Kerry. So start your healing today and reclaim you.